running a game is hard. Like, really, really hard. You have to write the background, build the world, schedule the sessions, stat out everything, and hardest of all, show up to the plans that you created. Just sit down at the table and be confronted by 4 to 8 assholes that couldn't be fucked to engage with your story. You have one of them trying to bang all your NPCs, another complaining about lack of plot, one complaining about too much plot, and one that only wants the sort of peen peeling. It's frustrating. But what if I told you there was a way to deal with this? What if I told you that role playing game players are incredibly predictable? Today on Why Are You Talking About This? Nerd. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Waytad Nerd. I will be your host and guide as we dive into role playing games once again. This time, I'm talking about players instead of classes. But before we do that, I want to thank you so much for listening to the show. It means the world to have you listening, even if it's to placate your most annoying friend that's forcing you to listen at knife point. Blink twice if you need help. And if you're glad to have my voice in your ear, stab your friend that you're forcing to listen to this twice. He blinked at me, I saw it. I'm really hoping that joke doesn't bite me in the ass. That was a dumb joke to bite me in the ass. But anyways, make sure to keep listening and reaching out. Also, make sure you're watching Win Kashika. It's really the only way I can give them support right now, and I deeply appreciate it. They're an awesome streamer and deserve the best. Also, check out Mystic Luna if you're in the marketplace for cute charms and jewelry. They do a great job and deserve success and support. Keep your ear out for bonus episodes as well, because I'm in the process of doing those. Make sure to check them out on YouTube for some visuals specific to the video side of things. Also, probably noises and sounds and stuff specific to the YouTube side. But yeah, with that, let's go to the show. Alright, so we're going to be talking about player types. And this is probably going to be an episode that doesn't fit how other episodes have been done. At least to me. You guys might not care much. But we're going to be covering 3 of the most popular and well-established models of categorizing player behavior. Beginning with the oldest and going to the newest. And I'm only using these 3 models because every role-playing game system has their own way of categorizing players, and everyone that's played more than 25 minutes of an RPG has written extensive articles on their own types. So these 3 will serve as our baseline to better understand your players, especially because they are long established and well respected. Starting with Glenn Blako's model, which was developed very early in RPG history in 1980. And this model was developed as a simple way to explain the concept of multiple people playing the same game and having vastly different experiences. He lists 4 styles of role-playing experiences that players fall into. First is the power gamer, where the person playing doesn't care about role-playing or showing off their skills. It's about being powerful and having a big dick. Players are using the game for power fantasy, and their character is just a conduit for them to experience that fantasy. These are players that believe winning is a thing that you can do in a role-playing game, and that not only should you do it, but that's the way the game is meant to be played. And for the most part, this is done for them by having the best stuff and the highest stats. Second is the role player. This form of player mostly focuses on the player character and their life. Their personalities are developed in high detail, and massive amounts of emotional investment are put into them. For them, the lives of their characters aren't cheap and they're very protective of them. Characters act within their personality and hold the beliefs that they're supposed to, which was a major problem in early role playing games. That's where alignment comes from. People would just do whatever they wanted to be convenient for the moment. For role players, the world is a stage for the characters they live in. For role players, the world is a stage for the characters to live in, and they're more interested in playing the character than they are in the game or really doing anything close to winning or following the story, making them a lot more cooperative. Third are wargamers, who are the inverse of role players. They prefer and are interested in the strategic and tactical abilities of the player group, particularly against the GM. They're also very interested in the game's mechanics. This player likes it when the game is a competition between the players and the game master rather than being a collaborative story or something for fun. For them, it's about the players finding a way to win together against the GM, who's trying to stop them, and with failure being met with character death, often quickly and brutally. And finally is storytellers. These players don't necessarily care about the rules or their characters. Instead, they just want to tell cool stories. Everyone working together to make an interesting, compelling story rather than trying to win. However, according to Blako, at this early period this was pretty rare, which in combination serves pretty well, especially for role-playing at the time, but it doesn't really get into the detail that we like nowadays. In 1999, Richard Bartle develops his model, which was originally meant to refer to types of video game players, but over the years it's been co-opted for the use in RPGs as well as a bunch of other games. This model is used less for how players think they win and more what they do for fun, what immerses them into the game, and how these things change over time. At the core of it, Bartle's taxonomy is divided into 4 quadrants. On the x-axis is player interest to world interest, and the y-axis is acting interacting, which gives you 4 basic types. Killers, being player interest and acting focused, are there to kill shit, dominate the game, and win, even if winning isn't the point. To them, they want to dominate and kill, even if that's other players. They're interested in player-to-player interaction, but the acting part means that they want to impose their will. Achievers, meanwhile, are world interested and are actors, meaning they want to have high scores, be at the top of leaderboards, get the best stuff, and have concrete measurements of success, even if that means not winning the game or making it harder on themselves. So while they still want to impose their will on the game, they're more interested in the world and the game's system. So they want to overcome the game, not the players. Third are explorers, that are world interested and interactive. They want to travel the world, discover the boundaries of the system in the game, discover the unknown, gain knowledge about the world, and share secrets and tricks with others. For them, it's all about the joy of discovery and knowledge. Because with the interactive part, they want to experience things, not control them. And finally, socializers, who have player interest and are interacting. And they want to make connections with people, both players and NPCs. They like the social aspect of the game and don't tend to care a whole lot about winning, losing, achievements, or information. More just making a social network, working together, and making friends. But Bartle doesn't stop there. He adds into a third axis, the implicit-explicit axis. Implicit axis. Implicit being doing things without thinking, while explicit is doing them intentionally, which lets you better understand your players, how they develop, and how they interact. For killers, the implicit is griefer, whose aim is power and fear, because they just want to break shit. While explicit killers are called politicians, but honestly, I would call them trophy hunters. They're basically wanting to get a massively good reputation, particularly for their skill and their abilities, or for being able to take on the big shit. Implicit achievers are called opportunists, where they try to find things to do, but don't really know what it is, but don't know what exactly is going to appeal to them until they find it. And then they become obsessed with it, which in this case is what you want. Explicit achievers are called planners, where they set a goal beforehand and aim to achieve it. Implicit explorers are hackers, have an intuitive understanding of the world and the rule set, and don't often need to test their ideas. Instead, they travel and show people secrets and exploits for the love of the game. While scientists are their explicit mirror, methodically questioning the world and trying to increase their knowledge and find out things about the rule system. Implicit socializers are called friends, like the ones we met along the way, who just enjoy the company of other people. While networkers are trying to forge powerful connections in groups, and so they analyze, assess, and taste test other players to make the strongest alliances. And like I referenced earlier, Bartle sees players going down generally predictable paths of development when playing a new game system. They'll start off as either a griefer or opportunist, knowing either that they want to dominate the field or knowing that they want to do something. From here, of course, they split off. A griefer will do one of two things from here. Either they begin to form a gang of griefers and become a networker, or begin to test the limits of the game, becoming a scientist. As they become a networker, they'll usually become either a politician or a planner, and from a scientist to a planner. As they begin to understand more of what they want from the game and establish themselves or prove their worth. And finally, they'll either become a hacker or a friend, either fully recognizing how their chosen game works and trying to break it, or mostly there for the friends they made along the way. If they begin as an opportunist, however, they'll either become a scientist or a networker, trying to explore their options in this world. And from there, they end generally the same. And this development track was initially meant to detail how to keep players invested in your video game long term, but it can also serve you in role playing for the same reason. And also, these are usually used as just general personality types for RPG players. Okay, into Robin Law's model, which was developed in 2001 and was based on Glenn Blakow's model, but expanded and modernized a bit as part of his guide of GMing. He also placed each of these kinds on a crunch continuum, which is how much crunchiness of the rules appeal to them. On the far left side is weak, vague GM favoring rules, and on the far right side is strong, well-defined player favoring rules. First are power gamers, that want to make their characters bigger, tougher, richer, and stronger, like a Daft Punk song. Whatever is considered success in your game, they want it. They see their character as an abstraction to collect cool abilities and win the game. They care a lot about the rules and put the game above the roleplay aspects. And they're like the chuds of RPGs, being on the far right of crunchiness. Butt kickers, but because I'm allowed to say naughty words, I'll say ass kickers, want to make a character that kicks ass and chews bubblegum. And they're fresh out of ass. They want to kill, beat shit up, and win fights. Either because they're a caveman that's easy to please, or because they want to dominate and show their superiority over their enemies. They only really care about the rules as far as they let them be a force of chaos and mayhem. They're right in the middle of the crunch continuum. Tacticians want to think their way through complex and realistic problems, particularly combat and on the battlefield. They want the rules and how you interpret them to mesh with reality as they know it, and portray an internally consistent logical system where their choices are the primary difference between success and failure. They also tend to get very pissy and annoyed when someone dares to roleplay in their role-playing game. They're on the right side of the crunch continuum. Specialists are people that want to play the same thing every time. They want support for their kind of character, no matter what they are, and regardless of the setting, tone, or rule set, they want to play them. And this is usually a single thing like a particular class or playstyle, or maybe even a theme or species. But there's people where it's all of the above. I mean, I have a friend who's like that. He has his emotional support magical elf. And they're on the left side of the crunch-matic. Method actors see role-playing as a medium for personal expression, strongly identifying with what they play. They see the entire point of the game to play interesting and new characters, and love to get in their character psyche, and oftentimes love to get fully 100% immersed into their character and see the rules as an obstacle to that. Fucking drama club kids. Oh, they're also right in the middle of the continuum. Storytellers like to tell the story of the game and don't really care about the numbers, rules, and experience points. Instead, they want to take part in a fun and or interesting narrative that feels like a book, movie, or TV show instead of a game. They're willing to compromise if they get more story out of it, but get frustrated at everyone else's very non-narrative choices very quickly. And just like me, they're on the far left end of the continuum. Which brings us to the last person, the filthy fucking casual. Casuals don't really care too much. They're just here because this is the thing we're all doing today. However, they tend to dip early when things get stressful and dramatic. But they're very, very important because they fill out your party and act as a buffer between the other types that butt heads very easily and can give you a nice break because they're very easy to please and they show up. So much so that they're not even on the continuum. Now, in 2005, Robin D. Law actually changed things around to be a bit more specific, having traits players can have instead of these personalities. Although people don't really bring these up nearly as often. These are things like accumulating cool powers, planning, playing a role, being a badass, psychodrama, setting exploration, and lurking. But, okay, that was a lot of dense information, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't know what to do with that or where to go. Well, luckily for you, that's what this whole episode is. So first, let's talk about how to identify player types. For Breakout, it's as easy as the system is to understand. Power gamers, while you're prepping, are very focused on maximizing their character abilities, powers, and resources. During the game, they'll seek out strong items, try to gain greater and greater skills, and seek out strategies to win the game and game the system. So, for example, if you have someone at the table flipping through the rules and talking about busted ass combos and trying to optimize their starting equipment and begging you for first level magic items, they're probably a power gamer. Role players are focused on immersing themselves in the character while everyone else is planning. They want to actively engage in role playing and try to develop character relationships, and they make decisions based on their character. So, for example, if they're not even looking at the book and are writing a backstory while everyone else is character building, then they're probably a role player. Wargamers will focus on studying rules and mechanics and thinking about long-term strategies. They'll also probably ask you about tools, weapons, and how they work in the system. During the game, they'll analyze rules, plan their actions, and focus on strategic/tactical abilities. So, if a player is examining the rulebook with a fine-tooth comb and asking you how Molotov cocktails and trap making works, they're probably a wargamer. And finally, storytellers are excited about the character arc. Before the game, they're looking at some of the most interesting concepts in the game world, focus on narrative, and are excited for specific events. During the game, they actively contribute to the story, loop in their character, place hooks and plot points, and make narratively impactful choices. If they show up to the session with a 30-page short story for their backstory and want you to make their character hurt real bad, they're probably a storyteller. Or horny. Or both. Alright, for Bartles, there's two options. Take the online test, or make your players do it, or alternatively, if you don't want them to know that you're trying to identify them, you can identify them by their focus, motives, and few key clues. For killers, they'll be interested in PvP, finding rule exploits, and winning at all costs. Keep an eye out for very aggro players that are competitive and are hungry for a challenge. Achievers are motivated to earn achievements, level ups, collect things, and optimize. Meaning that the people that jump at the chance for an achievement, like gay men seeing a twink, are probably your achievers. Explorers tend to roam around and explore or look for new areas or things to do and experiment with a variety of mechanics. They want to learn about the game's secrets, find things, and figure out the game's mechanics and how they work in practical terms. Finally, the socializer is motivated to get friends and allies, participate in the game and in in-game events, and love to never shut the fuck up. You can tell who they are because they're very active in the table talk and group activities and generally build positive relationships with other players. And these, like Blake Howe's model, can be seen both during play and character creation, but with more emphasis on gameplay, meaning it's probably a good idea to observe a few sessions before you really think about this one. But for Robin's laws, you can actually observe it through character creation. or a free online test. Or he does actually suggest is asking them what they like a well adjusted person that can ask their friends personal questions. Power gamers, just like in Blakehouse, are looking for builds and classes that give them clear and significant power advantages and stat boosts over other players. During the game, they respond very well to anything that widens that gap, which to them means they win the game. They also tend to maximize abilities. Butt kickers, meanwhile, make something fairly simple and combat oriented, something effective that they don't really have to think about or optimize very well. And during the game, they're going to be some of the first into the fight and the first to suggest it. They especially love fast paced, brutal combats that end because they fucking destroy the opposition. Tacticians are kind of the opposite of that, usually making a pretty complex character that complements a strategic orientation and that supports them making plans. They prioritize strategic planning and problem solving, and they enjoy having time to analyze the enemy's moves during the game. These are guys that take about 20 minutes to finish their turn at first level. Specialists are very easy to find during character creation. Has your buddy Kyle created a big tittied slutty ninja again? Even though it's a dystopian cyberpunk / high fantasy / age of piracy / Warhammer 40k adventure? Yeah, that's your specialist. They're not really going to be interested in adapting their character to the world in-game either, wanting to bend the world to their character rather than the other way around. Method actors during character creation will want to choose a build that resonates with their own personal experiences and dives into their character's backstory. And during play, while they won't necessarily care about the rolls, dice, or stats, they do care about being in character and doing the mannerisms, voice, and attitudes they planned out. Storytellers choose character archetypes with good storytelling potential, like warlocks and paladins in D&D. They don't care about optimization and instead prefer to roleplay and are active in the narrative and atmosphere of the game, which, depending on the game, can be a godsend. And finally, the casual, who, much like their profile would say, doesn't really do something crazy. Instead, they make a character that they like but don't go crazy in any field. They're there to hang out with their friends, maybe drink, eat too many snacks, and get away from the real world for a while. But there you have it. That's what the playstyles are and how to identify them, which means there's only one more thing to do. How the fuck do you actually get these people invested? Alright, now we get to the actual point of this. How do you use these things to manipulate your friends into playing the game that you laid out without them getting pissy or bored? And no, you don't have control issues. None of us do. They have issues listening to your divinely mandated authority. Well, for our good old trusty mom said it was my turn with the sword of power word circumcision, those being our Blake Howe power gamers, Bartle killers, law power gamers, and law axe kickers, what they want is simple. They want to feel rewarded. They want to win and have that rush hit them. Power gamers in both cases especially want to be challenged and patted on the back for wiping the floor with something, while ass kickers and killers more just want to cause damage. Meaning to make them happy, you need to give them things you're okay with getting broken. Give them dangerous things and ways to vent their competitive streak to keep them from being problematic and wanting everyone's stuff, beating up their characters and NPC waifus, and causing mayhem. Basically, divert them to focus on you. Make your monsters, and by proxy you, the thing that they need to beat up. Because they need someone besides them to lose, and if it's not you, it'll be the party. For our second group, we have the drama clubbers. These are Blake Howe's role players, Law's method actors, and Law's specialists. They want to do their own little special thing, which is usually talking to people you really didn't expect them to even think about. In all of these cases, they have very clear and well-defined characters that they want to do specific things with. And God help you if you get in their way. So let them do that. If they have a character-defining trait, make it important. If they want to have a deep personal connection to their character, don't kill that character. They want to play like they actually exist in the world and act like they're in the party. So they'll want to talk to people, look for things, and act like their character. They'll get annoyed when other people don't do this, so make sure you set up boundaries for them to keep them in line. Third are the Brainiacs. These are the Blakeout Wargamers, Bartle Achievers and Explorers, and Laws Tacticians. They want to feel clever, engage intellectually in the game, solve puzzles, figure out the game's systems and exploit them, and speedrun the progression system. And for the most part, if you just give them a problem to solve and space to do it, they'll be happy. From tricky combats to resource management to full-on 4th grade level brain teasers, all of these will get them interested in playing the game. Unfortunately, just as quickly as they'll get into it, they'll lose interest. Without simulation, your brainiacs will leave you first to go play 5-dimensional chess while you're over here playing tactical checkers. Achievers and explorers will need to be given new puzzles and ways to mark their success constantly. Wargamers need to feel like they're commanding troops, and tacticians need to beat enemies that feel clever. Otherwise, this just falls apart entirely for them. And then we have the storytelling corner. This is just Blakeout storytellers and Laws storytellers. They want the narrative. That's why they're here. So give them narrative to ogle at, and make sure their choices are narratively impactful and interesting. And the last group are the beer and pretzel gamers. These are the socializers and casuals. They're here to hang out with friends, and while they can get into the game, this is more of a social event than anything. So for them, just lean back and let them hang out with their buddies. Don't put them on the spot unless they consent or are trying to get into the spotlight, and be forgiving when they get distracted. In fact, if you have multiple of them, sit them together. They'll stop distracting your brainiacs and stop annoying your drama clubbers. Now, beyond how to get these fucking freaks invested, Robert D. Law also advises you on how to pick the right system and flow for his types. Similar to the crunch continuum, but assigning each of the types a number. So for both, you average the number for your playgroup, but in one case, it's the game system, and the other case, it's the game structure. For the system, you want to assign potential systems on a number line. On the far end at 3, you have insanely crunchy systems like GURPS, Big Eye Small Mouth, and EABA. On the other side at -3, you have very, very uncrunchy games like Powered by the Apocalypse. For this chart, power gamers are 3, tacticians and method actors are 2, casual and ass kickers are 0, specialists are -1, and storytellers are -3. So, let's say for example, you have a play group that are made up of a power gamer, a tactician, an ass kicker, and a specialist. Also, God rest the soul of any goblin that thinks they're tough shit around this party. So your party's average would be a solid 1, which means middle of the road crunch, but a little heavier on it. So like 4e D&D. And for the game structure, the far end of 3 means you should be very concerned and basically have the entire thing laid out in a neatly organized way with specific beats you want to happen. While a -3 means basically set up some stuff people can do and a specific goal, but don't even bother with the narrative. For this one, power gamers, casuals, ass kickers, and specialists are all 1. Tacticians are -3, method actors are 0s, and storytellers are 3. So for a made-up party, that comes to an average of 0, which basically means you should have an open-ended, general narrative with goals at the end, but nothing too crazy to either side. Basically a D&D adventure module. So with all this, let's test it out working together with a made-up party. Let's call these players Chris, Ulysses, Nathan, and Tim. So while you're prepping for the game, you analyze your players. And you match Chris up with a role player, achiever opportunist, and an ass kicker. Taking all that together, Chris is someone who will probably want to play a big, dumb beat stick. He doesn't really have a goal in mind game-wise, but he really wants to get into his very competent, powerful character that beats the piss out of people. And when he finds something that he thinks is cool to do, that's going to become his primary focus. So make sure to put stuff in the game for Chris to beat up, but as more of a challenge than just a numbers contest. Make it feel like an accomplishment, like how he punches the concept of late-stage capitalism so hard it fucking dies. Okay, Ulysses, after much consideration, is also a role player, but matches up more with the killer politician and method actor. This guy, this is a guy that wants to play the classic hero's journey. They like fighting the big monsters, and their characters being well loved for it. They want to overcome adversity and come out of it as a hero. So, give that to him. Make sure Ulysses has chances to grow as a character, beat up the big bad evil monster, and have NPCs celebrate him for it. He also does not give a single fuck about the numbers, so you can just fib and tell me you did a good job, even though you only use the orc stat block. Nathan can be a bit of a problem player, because after looking at him closely, you realize that he's a wargamer, killer griefer, and ass kicker. Meaning he really wants to compete. Like, hardcore wants to compete with people. To him, the rules are there to prove he's smarter than everyone else and a lot more powerful. He's so confident, in fact, that he's figured out the system that he. He's so confident, in fact, that he's figured out the system that he doesn't even play a smart character. He just plays a mayhem machine that turns a night at the tavern into a war crime and a gang of bandits into jam. He's so sure he knows the rules and is so dominant over everyone else that he's just gonna bludgeon them. That he's just gonna bludgeon them into playing how he wants with a dumbass. So how do you address this? Well, you make sure that Nathan sees you as the competition and the rest of the party as valuable assets in his Doom music-backed mission of mass destruction. Give him enemies that are highly organized and strategic, that are a challenge and take him seriously, but ultimately can't handle his blender in the shape of a man when it's backed up by the rest of the party. Which brings us to Tim. Tim is kind of weird. See, he's a war gamer, explorer, scientist, and method actor. Basically, in combination, he wants to be challenged strategically, but is also in and out of character, very interested in lore and knowledge acquisition, and how the lore and knowledge affects the rules of the game. Basically, he wants to be rewarded for knowing things in character with mechanical benefits, which, if he puts in the work, is fair. Now, Tim does actually want to play a good character, but given that he doesn't give a shit about the story, he's basically along for the ride because he wants to explore and figure shit out. So, let him do that. And with that party, what kind of game should you be running? Well, you'll want a system that has good crunch to it, but not too much to make everyone happy. Since these guys really like to have good rules, but want to be free from them a bit, and they also aren't really going to care much about the narrative structure, so feel free to make that what you want. From a personal note, however, I'd advise you to make sure to build tougher fights for these guys. You're dealing with two people that want to play ass-kicking, superpowered damage dealers, one that wants to be a classic hero, killing monsters and kissing girls, and one that really wants to put his knowledge of the game to work. All of them want it to be a fair fight. But, okay, why should you even talk? Why should you even care about this? Let's talk about why it matters. Alright, this is going to be real short. Basically, this matters because if you're running an RPG, you want your players to have fun. At least enough to keep coming back so you can hang out with your friends or emotionally manipulate them or whatever reason you decide to play these games. And so it's very important to make sure you give them things they're actually interested in. Because yes, you're friends. And yes, you're playing a role-playing game. But you're a group of two or more people, meaning there's politics going into this. There's butting heads and mutual interests. So you need to manage that. Keep the table together and interest in the game. Really take a long look at your group and figure out what makes them tick and how to use it. And you can also relax a bit. Like, one of the guys I play with a lot is a classic specialist. Before this, I got annoyed at him. But now, just fucking let him play his mages. He's not hurting anyone. Especially not me. I like having magic in my game. So this matters because it lets you be a better GM, run games people actually like, and keep the table working together smoothly. So let's go to the soapbox. I'm not going to pretend that this is new information for me or was eye-opening, because I've been interested in stuff like this for a long time. Even if I've even used the quizzes before and tried to assign my players on the charts, and it never worked before. And that's ultimately because I didn't commit to the bit and actually do it. Learning about these three systems will probably be helpful to me in the future, and I hope it'll help you too. However, admittedly, do I see myself fully implementing them? Probably not, because the way I run games is very agnostic to how players prepare and act in the game. I prefer to fly by the seat of my pants and make stuff up as I go along, regardless of how dumb that might be in the long term. So, yeah, I mean, classic Will Tat. I like this thing, but I'll never use it because I'm stubborn. My girlfriend would be very unsurprised. Damn, that was kind of a tough one to write. Hopefully a good one, but I mean, kind of tiring and tough to think over and do. But, anyways, if you have opinions, advice on how to make the show better, your own ways of identifying players, justifications for why femboy is a player type, and really anything else you want to tell me, make sure to email me at waytatpods@gmail.com. That's WAYTATPODS@gmail.com. Remember to check out my other podcast, Waytat, where I do basically the same thing, but with stuff that's normally on time. And also remember to follow me on Twitter at waytat_pods for more episode announcements. Have a good night. Don't murder. Have fun. And remember, everyone's at the table to have fun. You just gotta figure out what kind. This has been Why Are You Talking About This Nerd? I've been your host, William. Good night.